So in the book it tells when people died, huh?
Yeah. And the people that were still living in 2007 when Dad and you had written and published this book. So I want to make one more video as a follow-up to something that I read in one of these chapters.
What?
So Dad had mentioned in one of his chapters about the Waldensian Valley. So I remember in 2009 or 2010, so I had asked you and Dad, is there a bucket list place on this earth that you have always wanted to go and you would like to visit? And both of you had said the Waldensian Valley in northern Italy and Switzerland. You wanted to go. So what I did was planned a trip for the three of us to go, and we went, if I remember right, in the spring of 2010. So this is after Dad had his ostomy bag, but before he was on dialysis. And it was the last major trip overseas that, or it was the last trip overseas that you and Dad ever did. So we flew from Los Angeles to Geneva, Switzerland. We got off the plane. I went and got a rental car that I had reserved, and we traveled to the Adventist University in Cologne, France. Spent one night there in I think the dorm, because it was during, maybe it was in June. I think it was after, it was during their summer break. And then we traveled down to northern Italy to the Waldensian Valley. I don't remember the name of the town that we were at. We stayed at the Adventist pastor's home, and he or his wife or maybe one of his children over a couple days showed us around, and we went to the mountains where the Waldensians hid when they were being persecuted.
See, I've forgotten that.
And so we had a good time there. Then we then traveled to Zermatt, Switzerland. So I don't remember if we went back towards Geneva or we went east towards Milan and then up. But we went to Zermatt, parked our car, and then took the train into Zermatt because there's no private cars allowed in Zermatt. And we spent either 2 or 3 nights in Zermatt, and we took the cog railway up to the viewing points to see the Matterhorn. And I remember we had just a wonderful time exploring Zermatt and the mountains around the Matterhorn. Then we took the train back down to our car, and if I remember right, we took the auto train through the mountain, through the Swiss Alps, to the Berner Oberland. So this is the center of Switzerland.
The burner?
Berner Oberland, Berner Oberland. Because you wanted to go to Interlaken, Switzerland, and the area around the Swiss Alps. So we had, in advance, reserved a 2-bedroom apartment at the Adventist retirement home in Kratingen, Switzerland. This is by, I think it's Lake Thun.
K-R-A-T-T-I-G-E-N,
I think, Kratingen. And this was a lovely apartment. So it had a full kitchen, it had a living room, it had 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. And every day we went to different places. So we went up to the top of, it's called the top of Europe, up high up in the Swiss Alps. We had a lovely time up there. The air was thin, and Dad was not able to do a lot of walking around. But I remember you and I walked outside and walked quite a ways on the ice and the snow, looking at all the scenery around there. So that was one of the visits. I think we had taken a boat ride. We also did a boat ride on Lake Geneva. I think we did a couple boat rides on that trip.
GENIVA.
EVA. Geneva. I think when we were in Geneva, we may have gone to the Olympic Museum. I think we did. Another memory that I have is we were coming back from exploring. We were in the car near Interlaken, and there was a military jet that was flying low and obviously was going to land. So I like jets, and so I followed this military jet to somewhere around Interlaken, and it landed. So I drove till I saw what looked to be like a runway, but there was no fence, there was no gate. There was a sign in German, which I conveniently chose to ignore. And I crossed this road, which turned out to be a runway, and went to a fenced area where I saw the jet going into the mountain, into a hangar in a mountain. And so I got out of the car, got my video camera, and started filming. This is not one of my brightest moments. About 2 minutes later, a security van with 4 armed Swiss police or Swiss Air Force came up, and they started talking very excitedly in German. And I said, I don't understand German. Do you understand English? They did. And they said, what are you doing here? And I said, I just saw the plane. I'm here with my parents and just wanted to see the plane. They said, well, do you know that you crossed the runway of an airport? And I said, oh, I didn't know that was a runway. I can't remember if I thought it was a runway or not. So when they saw that I had elderly parents there, after much discussion in German among them, they decided to let us go with a warning. But I could have ended up in a Swiss jail if they weren't so kind. So I was a little shaken by that experience and decided that in the future I would be more careful and maybe read the signs or translate the signs or something to make sure that I did not venture into an area that we weren't supposed to be in. So we had a wonderful time for a week in the Berner Oberland. Berner. Then we flew, I remember, to bless you.
Excuse me.
We flew to London Heathrow Airport. We all had decided rather than checking luggage, we would just carry it with us, which turned out to be a hassle because at London Heathrow Airport, you have to exit the plane and then get on a bus and go to another terminal. And anyway, but we did it and then flew back home. But those are wonderful memories. I remember us sitting on a bench outside of this apartment in Krattigen, Switzerland, looking out over this beautiful lake and the cows on the Swiss mountainside and just being together. Oh, and we went to church there and made friends in church, and they invited us to a potluck at one of the church members' homes after Sabbath services, and we had a lovely time visiting with the people there.
So you've had some good experiences, huh?
Wonderful experiences. Now, I was so privileged to go on a trip with you and Dad and be able to, experience that as your last trip out of the United States. I know that the last trip that Dad took was to Chaz's college graduation from Washington Adventist University.
See,
But this was the last trip
I
out of
don't
the country.
remember that.
Yeah. So, Mom, I've enjoyed reading this whole book, Called to Serve, and reminiscing about your life and Dad's life. I love you very much.
Well, thank you.